I wore my pink shirt, figuring that, I mentioned being a commie, so.
Yeah, Pinkos are not commies, they're liberals. No, I have a red shirt.
Shut the fuck up, Don. Okay. Dave Rogers and I are good friends, so I can tease him, and I tease him all the time, so we
One
understand
of the
this.
best minds of my generation. Yeah.
Indeed, and given that allusion to Ginsberg, here goes. This time it was Allen Ginsberg. I had seen him seated at the Ken Babbs event at Tsunami Books. Babbs being a friend of Mary Prankster, our Eugene hero made into a statue on a plinth. Actually, it's a bench, I know, but I wanted to say plinth. Plinth. Ginsberg was seated a couple rows up from where I was standing. I didn't feel like fraternizing given where he was seated, given that he was wedged in next to others, and so their eyes surely scoping me out, imaginary or not. Which I didn't feel like dealing with at the time, the scoping out, but also the brushing up against the knees of the seated ones. And then sitting next to Allen Ginsberg, and so having to listen to his jokes, which are Frog's jokes. Frog being Eugene's famous hippie jokester. Bad jokes, to be sure. But then, given my fondness for bad jokes, that in and of itself was not the problem. Just my not wanting to take in those jokes at that time and brush up against the knees of the seated ones. Not to mention the scoping out, imaginary or no. So I didn't bother to say hi. Today, when I ran into Allen Ginsberg at the Stein, he said he had seen me at Tsunami, at the Babbs event, and I explained that I too had seen him at Tsunami at the Babbs event. I told him I didn't stick around for it, even though I had this feeling this was some kind of historical event. Babbs being one of the Mary Pranksters, close friend to the late Ken Kesey, and eventually it was my intent to go to the Babbs event and actually see him, actually it was my intent to go to the Babbs event and actually stay there for it. By the way, I'm talking of the real Ken Babbs here, just as I'm talking about the real Ken Kesey here. Unlike the fictional Allen Ginsberg, who is just a place name employed to protect the guilty. Just like the fictional Bill Burroughs, not to mention the fictional author, him or herself. I also said to Allen Ginsberg that I felt it was just good to go out and attend these kinds of events, to support the culture in your community and all. And that, as a citizen of Eugene, we have a civic duty to attend such things, and so forth. A civic duty that in many ways explains my commitment to the Stein, our public square, said I to Allen Ginsberg. Ginsberg shaking his head in agreement before launching into some kind of manic monologue interspersed with the occasional bad joke, passed on to him by his famous housemate, Eugene's own Frog, joke maker, pamphleteer extraordinaire. Unlike some, I like Allen Ginsberg's jokes scripted by the legendary Frog, but I do have to stop him when he begins to launch into one of his songs or some lyric by one of his folk heroes, which he's always on the verge of doing despite or in spite of my protestations. A persistence that I admire, Allen Ginsberg being one of a number of Eugene's folk heroes, being a folk singer himself to boot. So, as it happens, it also happened to be the day that the two games of the Final Four were being played, and my favorite of the two games was on TV, the beginning of the second half beginning soon, between Butler and UConn. And so I was feeling divided, though now that I think of it, I'm thinking, what the fuck? Butler versus UConn? As if I cared for either team or for sports in general. Fuck sports. Sports in the USA being like the opiate of the masses and so forth. Not the kind of intoxication I condone. Though true, I'm prone to getting sucked in by it, and March Madness, being an American, that is to say, a hypocrite. Do I contradict myself? Very well, then. I contradict myself. I am large. Fortunately, I happened to cross paths with the Babbs in question, who kindly nodded to me, and I to him nodded kindly as well. And so I thought, okay, I've gotten what I've come for. Attending such events as much for their social aspect as the reading itself, most of which I have a hard time concentrating on, one line after the other, spawning a line of thought that drifts off and away from the reading at hand. Nobody's experiencing that right now, right? Given that I wasn't really into listening to the dude on the guitar who was leaning up to the Babs gig, not that I don't value that, the folk guitar stuff popular in these parts. I'll buy his book later. Sorry. Okay, no. Well, never mind. The High Lamas now, that would be another thing. Come on. Fantastic band. I'll buy his book later. After all, the brouhaha, said I to myself at the time. Meanwhile, I'll shoot home for the rest of the game, trading one historical event for another. Not that there's an equivalency going on here. As it happened, the second half proved to be historical only insofar as it was historically awful and hence entirely forgettable. Well, was it due to bad basketball or just damn good defense on Connecticut's part? That is the question the pundits are tossing around on the radio. Soon enough, though, all will be forgotten, and we'll find ourselves in another season with another historical event to forget, if not forgo. Thank you.